What up, YouTube? So we're going to be talking about something awesome today, which is how to be more efficient with your time, and really a productivity hack to the extreme. And I've really only learned this from the greatest and best entrepreneurs. I've got to work with some people who have like almost billion-dollar empires, and so it's really changed the way I look at things. And one of the things that I want to share with you that is literally going to change the way you operate and achieve productivity for the rest of your life is the 4 levels of productivity. And there's probably levels past that, but I only know of the 4 anyway. And 1 and 2 you've probably heard of. You've probably seen them in other videos where they start telling you, like budget your time, and they're kind of like generic tips that are somewhat helpful, but they're not going to change the way your output is just radically transformed. But it's the 3rd and the 4th ones that I've really only learned in like very high level kind of secret masterminds with almost billionaires. Some of them actually are billionaires. And people who are spending like $25 million a month on advertising and the way they look at doing this. So you're going to want to stick around for that, because this is going to change the way you do business and the way you output things for the entire rest of your life. So without further ado, let's do it. So just what the fuck are we talking about when we say being productive and efficient with your time? And this really, really matters because most people get this wrong. And to illustrate this, a friend of my last girlfriend, we met up for dinner, we were all together, and she said to us, "What are you guys doing April 21st next year on Tuesday at 8 p.m. in the evening?" And she was talking about some date that was 9 months out in advance, and it was obvious that her calendar was completely full and she was super busy. And most people would look at that kind of person and say, hey, she's super productive and she gets a lot of things done. And it's really, in the entrepreneurial world, it's very, very different, because you are paid on the value and the breakthroughs and the results that you create for other people. And so it's not really based on how much time you have and how many things you're going on. It's really, really interesting, because one of my mentors built a $10 million business, and it took him almost 22 years to do it start to finish. And he ended up selling that business, and then he did it a second time, built another $10 million business, and it took him a year and a half to build the second $10 million business. And he said, the second time I did it, I only worked 5-10 hours a week. I spent most of my time going golfing and fishing, and I was no longer in the 80-hour week hustle and grind, and I was way, way more productive. So we're going to be talking about that kind of productivity, where it's about the results and the breakthroughs you create for other people, and not necessarily the amount of time and the busyness and trying to compress your schedule to get a ton of shit done. So the first level, if you're at it, looks a little something like this. By the way, this is where like 90% of small business owners are running in the holy shit, everything's on fire, and we're reactive and we're running around with chickens with our head cut off, and everything that appears urgent. And so if you're one of those people who's checking your email like 27 times a day and reacting to everything that's coming in there as if you got to respond immediately and not prioritizing your time in any way, you're like pretty much like all these guys, and your world will feel like you're just fighting fires all day long. And so it's really, really interesting, because I noticed when I worked with in the past with a lot of these small business owners, I would find the way they would try services like marketing services or things that could potentially expand their empire would just be somebody called them up and they would roll the dice that day and give it a shot. And when you're in these very high level masterminds with like the top people in those same fields, what you find is it's very different. They're very proactive. They say, who's the best Google AdWords person? Who would you hire for referrals? And they get a name of the top, the best, the person who can most advance their cause the quickest, which is very, very different. Now, the second level you've probably also heard of, and it looks a little something like this. And in the second level, it's where you're working on things that are important, not just what's urgently presenting itself in the moment. Like the email comes up, you have the capacity to ignore it and say, I will get to that later. It's not as important as what I'm doing right now. Now, this is probably where about 5% of the whole business world operates. And when you do that, you're going to get more things done. Now, I've seen people in the level before this where they spend 9 months just fussing with their logo, thinking that that's going to just magically, build their empires. People are going to go, what a logo. So when you start to work on the things that are important, what you find is it advances your cause a whole lot more rapidly. Now, let's talk about the life-changing stuff. This is the evil genius level 3. And it looks a little something like this. Oh, that's quite evil enough. A little less evil than that. So when you're in the 3rd level, this is where you start to to think about the way that you achieve these creative outputs and the values and the results you create for other people, you start to think about the length of time that your efforts can have. Now, let me give you a really simple example. One of my mentors explained this really simple. He said, I like to do things once that I can get paid for over and over and over and over again. Now, when you think about that, that's really simple yet profound. It's putting all your efforts and energy into something important that has the capacity to keep paying you again and again over time, and to keep creating results, and to keep offering value to the marketplace. And so he was a big advocate of doing things that were, upfront, maybe effort heavy, but once they were done, and for him that meant a lot of courses and trainings and things that he could do. So for example, he would host a live event, and then he would record the event and then continue to sell the training long after the event was finished. And it helped answer everybody's questions. So that allowed him to be able to do something once. And so when he was thinking about using his time, he wasn't just thinking about what was urgently presenting itself or what was important, but he was also thinking about the length of time that it would have an impact. And if you really want to take your results to the next level, start thinking longer term for how you can create assets that are going to have that effect for you over time. Now, the fourth level is really super evil genius, and that level looks a little like this. Yes, because at that point, you're pretty much a fucking wizard. And when you're in the fourth level, it's really about taking that third level where you're now thinking about the length of times you're working on those things, and you're doing important things, but you're now also thinking about how can I use systems and processes to create these things that create value and results for people over the long term without me having to put in all the effort in the initial stage. And so what you're thinking about is how to leverage long-term assets that generate income and generate results for people and have value to the marketplace for a long time based on a very small strategic effort in the beginning. And when you start to do that, that's when your entrepreneurship and your efficiency and your time reaches a whole nother level. Now, I know you've probably seen a lot of videos where they talk about, like budget your time and get rid of bad habits, and all those things are important, and I'm certainly not shitting on those things, but they're not going to change your time as much as, and the results you create as much as really looking about focusing on the right things. The right things, the quality of the right tasks and the quality of the right outputs is far more important in your efficiency than it is about doing a whole lot of things and being busy and having to plan things 8 months out in advance. So if you're having to plan things 8 months out in advance, chances are you're busy on a whole lot of things that are more other people's objectives and they're the wrong tasks. So if you find yourself doing those, what I would suggest is get back to the drawing board and start rating the tasks you can work on those 4 factors, which is how important is it, how urgent is it, and again, the least value should be placed on how urgent it seems, because if you're going to be an entrepreneur that does a lot of amazing things for people, that's not as important. I'm shooting you guys the finger. I don't mean to shoot you the finger. The third thing, let's put 3 fingers up. The third thing is again, thinking about the length of time, and then the fourth is, can this be systematized and organized in such a way where that upfront effort doesn't depend wholly on me? So that's how you take your entrepreneurial efficiency and time efficiency really to a whole nother level, is moving from whatever level you're on to the next level past it. And for most of you guys, I imagine that's either moving from level 1 and getting away from just everything coming at you and reacting to it, and answering every email or every text message just because it comes up, or going from the second level where you're working on important things, but now you're also thinking about the time component, is how long does this asset has the ability to A, help people, and B, help our business and our company grow. So if you like that, by the way, we also have a free training below that'll show you how to really connect with your life purpose and to be able to do that from a laptop. So if you found yourself where you're generating money, but you're doing it in a way that just doesn't feel good to you, and you want to do something more impactful and more transformative in the world, then you're going to want to check out that free training. So I'll put a link both in the comments below as well as in the video description. So grab that. Again, it's free. You just got to enter your name and email. And I hope you dig this, because I had a whole lot of fun making it for you guys and sharing some evil genius that I've learned from some super high level, amazing entrepreneurs.